Hey guys, it's Jenny here, and today it is currently March 29th, and I am filming my March wrap-up a little bit early. I know it is early because I still have like 2 days, but where my reading's at right now, I just genuinely don't think I'm going to be able to get anything that I'm currently reading done in the span of 2 days. So I'm just going to wrap it up for the month, because I'm very pleased with where my reading is at, even if I didn't really increase the number of books I read this month per se. But I had a very good reading month. I read a total of 6 books, and 3 of those books were 5 out of 5 star books. And I had 1 4.5 out of 5 star books, 1 4 out of 5 stars, and the lowest I had was a 3 out of 5 stars. So I call that a pretty good month. So I'm going to be going in the order that I read these. Just keep in mind that there's a more detailed review on all of my Goodreads for all of these books. Anytime I read a book, I put it on my Goodreads and I write a full-length review on the book as well as my rating and explain why I gave it that rating. Okay, I hope I don't get the hiccups because I feel like I am. The first book that I read in the month of March was The British Terabithia by Catherine Patterson. This is a book centered on 2 children named Jess and Leslie. Jess comes from a poor family and Leslie comes from a wealthier middle-class family. And they find this crick in the back of their property, and they sort of make it their own territory where they get away from their school bullies and family issues. And then one day tragedy strikes, and that's all about them trying to figure out what to do with their life from then on and how to cope with the grief. And this is a book that comes from my childhood. I never actually read the book because I didn't know it was based off of a book. But when I was little, I watched the movie and I loved it. It was religious for me to watch the movie, and I actually created my own Terabithia because of the movie. And those are some of the memories from my childhood I will never forget because I did have my own Terabithia and I miss it so much. But this got a 5 out of 5 stars. I simply adore this book. The character building was so well done and the story was just so good. It was quick, but it was good. It was really nice, short. It was like a memorable story. The movie is so well done with the book. They're so closely intertwined, you can't even really tell the difference. This was 163 pages, and at the end of this, I will be giving you my monthly page count. So that's something new. The next book that I read this month was Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This book I gave 4 out of 5 stars. This is basically set in a world where those who have red blood are sort of the peasant class as compared to those who have silver blood. The silver bloods have abilities and they are the royalty and the nobles and they are the wealthy class. So essentially the reds are meaningless to the silvers. And one day, the reds are just servants and they are to serve the silver elite who have supernatural abilities because of the color of their blood. And it apparently makes them nearly gods. Our main character named Mare steals to help her family survive after her brothers are drafted into the war. So, a twist of fate leads her to the royal palace itself, where in front of the king and all the nobles, she discovers an ability she did not know she had. The only problem with her having an ability, though, is that her blood is red. So in the world, this is an anomaly for a red to have silver abilities. And so this is kind of her journey throughout that experience. So that was super interesting. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars because the story was very slow at some parts, and I just found some parts of the story very unnecessary, and I feel like this could have been a little bit shorter. I mean, just some aspects of the story I just didn't care for as much as I thought, but overall it was a really good story, and there were plot twists and just things happening that I didn't expect to happen, and that's something I really love to see in books, is for me not to be able to predict them, and I can appreciate that a lot. Our main character kind of annoyed me a lot sometimes, but it's okay, I guess. So yeah, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, and this was 383 pages. This was one that I listened to on audiobook, but I'm still counting it because I still got through those pages, guys. Okay, so the next book that I read this month was actually another audiobook, and which I listened to, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This is the 4th time I will have read this book. As always, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. This is my favorite in the series, I believe. And if you guys don't know what Harry Potter is by now, it's basically about this orphan boy named Harry Potter who has grown up in the care of his aunt and uncle after his parents had died. His aunt and uncle are terrible people, and on his 11th birthday, he becomes wrapped in the wizarding world. And he discovers he's a wizard, and his heritage is actually way more important than he was originally led on to believe, and he just gets swept into this wizarding world, and it's such a good story. If this isn't already a classic, it's going to be a classic one day. Everybody's going to be required to read this book. It is phenomenal, and I love it every time. The characters, the story, just the magic of the whole story. I love it so much. And yeah, 5 out of 5 stars as usual. This was 309 pages, and I did listen to this on audiobook because the first 3 times I read it, it was physical, so I decided to switch it up a little bit, and I loved it just as much as when I read it myself because the audiobook was phenomenal. They did all the accents, and the story was just so well done. He had the emotion in his voice, and he did the accents for the other characters, and it was so good. I loved it so much. So yes, this was 309 pages. That was it for audiobooks for the month. But the next book I read was All These Things I've Done by Gabrielle Zevin. This was my book club book for this month. Basically, this is a dystopian set in the future where chocolate is illegal and paper and water are rationed. Coffee is also considered to be a drug. So that was a very interesting concept that drew me in. So basically, this girl is a bratva, which means she is a part of the Russian mafia. She isn't, but her father was the Russian mafia. So she's kind of like the Russian mob princess. And a lot of crap goes down, but her family is the ones who are still dealing chocolate, because that's their family specialty, is their Balanchine chocolate industry. So that's kind of what the mobsters do in the future. Apparently they illegally deal chocolate and caffeine, but her family deals chocolate. But I don't even know what the real plot of the story is. They say that the plot is that chocolate and caffeine are illegal and paper and water are rationed, but that's not the plot. So I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because while they gave a really interesting concept to begin with, she hardly even followed up on the fact that chocolate and coffee were illegal and the other things were rationed. And I say that because her family was very wealthy, so none of those things really applied to her. She could eat chocolate, she didn't get in trouble if she had caffeine, she didn't have to worry about rationing water and paper, and she didn't have to worry about money. So it wasn't really a very interesting concept from the point of our protagonist. So I particularly didn't really care for this book. I mean, it surprised me because I really wasn't expecting to like it. But I did enjoy the characters, and honestly, the plot it fell flat. It just flopped halfway through the story. There wasn't really a plot, and I finished it just because I felt like I had to for book club, but I didn't really enjoy it as much as I would have liked to. So yes, this got a 3 out of 5 stars, and it was 354 pages. The next book I read this month was Every Heart a Doorway by Sina McGuire. I actually read this on ebook. I had gotten it on my phone when I had forgotten my book and my headphones for my audiobook, so I was like, quick, I need to find an ebook. So I just clicked on this one and downloaded it, and I read it in a couple days, but I loved it. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, but I adore this story. Essentially, this is about numerous different children who each of them find a doorway in the middle of nowhere. Like, if they could be playing with their toys in a toy box, and all of a sudden the toy box will just open up into this random door. Or they could just be they could be looking for clothes in their closet, and all of a sudden a door will open up. And they find these doorways, and essentially children are curious, so they obviously go into these doorways, which lead to these different worlds. Every child goes through a different doorway to other realms and worlds, and it was such an interesting concept. I will have to admit, I was blown away by how cool this concept was. Children just find these imaginary worlds and go through them, and yeah, nobody really goes to the same world except for a pair of the twins. But this book centers on a woman who opens a school for wayward children, which is the kids who get kicked out of their imaginary worlds and have trouble coping with the reality of their original world, the human world, which is ordinary. And this is a home for them where they can be free to talk about their experiences and maybe even find their way back to their world. And it was just so interesting. The beginning, I will admit, was a little bit confusing to me when they were describing the different types of worlds. They had like words like high logic, high nonsense, virtue, wickedness, and stuff like that. It was hard to understand how they were talking at first, but once you understood the concept, it was such a great story. Despite me being confused at the beginning, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It was phenomenal. And while I'm pretty sure this is like 170 something pages in physical, I read it on the ebook, which was 231 pages. So that's what I'm counting it as, because I did flip my ebook 231 times. But I ordered this I ordered the physical after I read it on ebook and discovered that I loved it. So I have the first one and the third one up there. And I'm going to be ordering the second one hopefully soon, because it's on Book Outlet for like $6. But yes, I really love this book. I would recommend it because they're very short. And I think it's going to be like a 5 or 6 book series. So yeah, I read that. 5 out of 5 stars, 231 pages. The last book that I finished this month was Daughter of the Burning City by Amanda Foody. This was the one I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars to. This follows a girl named Serena Gomorrah, who is an illusionist in the traveling circus of Gomorrah. She has the ability to spin the most powerful illusions. So powerful that she is able to create human illusions. So essentially, she creates a family for herself. They are all freaks and misfits in their own way. They all have special abilities. Like, there's conjoined twins. There's a girl with hawk wings. There's an old man made out of fingernails. There's a girl with no bones in her body. She's completely flexible. There's a fire-breathing baby. There's a tree man. Like, all of her illusions are unique in their own way. But that's just it. They are just illusions until one day they start getting murdered. And that shouldn't be possible considering they're just illusions. So she has to go on this manhunt full of politics, mystery, magic, and just illusion in general to figure out what is happening to her illusions and how to prevent her family from getting hurt. And this was just such a cool story. I've never heard anything like this in a story, and I've noticed that as a theme for this month for my reading. I've read so many books this month with themes that you've never even thought authors would go near. And this was a very, very dark fantasy, and I admire how the author wasn't afraid to kill off her characters. And I really enjoyed this story. There was a little bit of a dead zone in the middle, which talked a lot about politics and kind of strayed away from the story, which is what knocked it down by a 0.5 star. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. And while I want more from these characters in this world, I appreciate that this is just going to be a standalone, because that just means it'll be easier for me to reread in the future. So this was 377 pages. So yeah, that was all that I read for this month. I actually have like 5 different books going or something like that. But yeah, I read these 6, and altogether that makes 1,817 pages for the month of March. And honestly, I'm pretty proud of that. I think I read like 6 books in January and March as well. So that's also a pretty good accomplishment. I'm okay if my reading is kept constant. It's the downside if my reading starts going down is what worries me. But I'm cool if it's being kept constant. But yes, I'm feeling very accomplished that I got through these. And I'm happy to say that only one of these was a reread. So these are all new books I can finally say that I've finished, and I got off my TBR, which Red Queen has been on my TBR for a very long time. Like, before I even started BookTube, it's been on my TBR, and I finally finished it. But yes, that concludes my March wrap-up. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys read any of these books this month, or if you plan to in the future, or if you even have read them and enjoyed some of my views on them. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and make sure you hit the bell if you'd like to be notified when I post new content. And as always, feel free to comment down below, because I love talking to you guys. And also, my email will be linked down below if you have any video ideas for me to do, or if you just want to chat, because I like to chat. So yes, thank you guys again for watching.